Good afternoon. Wow, that was loud. Okay. Thanks for coming this afternoon. I'm Greg Holderfield, co-director of the Masters of Product Design Development program, and welcome to our seminar series. Our guest today is a longtime friend and a friend of many in the room, Anthony Pannozzo from Continuum. I've known Anthony for probably 12 years. We collaborated in the innovation space, leading design initiatives for HLB in Boston and Chicago. Anthony was a former board member of the Industrial Design Society of America. He was a recipient of the 2009 International Design Excellence Awards for medical devices, and he currently leads the strategy initiative for Continuum. So if we'd please welcome Anthony. Thank you.
So is this on? Can you hear me? Excellent. Well, thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here. This is actually my second trip to Northwestern. I was here 2 years ago, and I realized I actually had an opening kind of joke, icebreaker, but I realized that some of you were in the class earlier today, so it's going to be recycled, so just kind of go along with it. So here it goes. I actually gave this presentation 2 weeks ago at Harvard, and I just wanted to let everyone know that that was my opportunity to run this off-Broadway, and now I'm doing it for the big show. Yes. The Harvard part was true, and it was a lot of fun, actually. But anyway, thank you for having me. I'm going to talk, and I think as the posters indicate, there's no bait and switch here. I'm going to talk about innovation and design for emerging markets. I have been with Continuum for about 2 years, and I lead the emerging markets practice at Continuum. And I thought I would just share a very brief bit of what Continuum is about for those of you who may not know much about Continuum. We are, we can all read here, of course, but we focus on innovation and design. We do this first by studying people because we feel that by understanding people, we can recognize opportunities to identify breakthrough ideas, and we make those ideas real. So as a company, our heritage is very much rooted in product development. So a lot of what we do or what we feel we bring to our clients is we can not only help them understand what's next, but we can also help them how to get there. We can build, we can experience, we can create things, and we feel it's very important for us to ultimately be measured by a result with our clients, because we really measure ourselves the same way our clients measure ourselves. It's all about business performance. It's not about winning an award. It's not about being in a museum. It's about growing the business, which is one of the reasons why we're really excited about emerging markets. This is just a little map here that sort of lays out the Continuum world. Right now, if you look at everything in an orange circle, these are where we have studios. So our main studio is in Boston. We have a studio in LA, Milan, Shanghai, and Seoul. These brownish circles are where we have alliances and partnerships. So one thing that we're trying to do very rapidly is scale to have a global presence, because the growth in emerging markets is where we feel is going to really drive the economy over the next 20 years. And we want to make sure that we are well positioned and in the best possible position to truly understand consumer needs and desires in these areas. Some examples of things that we have done. So some of this you may be very familiar with. Others you may not. But if you look at this top row here, one of the things, again, that we pride ourselves in is obviously, we want to create great design, and we want to create breakthrough innovation. But we want that innovation to have a real impact on our clients' bottom line. The three products you see up top, the Reebok pump, the Swiffer, and the repositioning of the Pampers brand, have all netted over $1 billion for our clients in terms of gross sales. And that's really important to us, because we want to be creating billion-dollar brands. We don't want to be creating, again, products that look good on a shelf, collect a lot of dust, and maybe win an award or two. And these three products have really helped sort of create that reputation for us. Down here in the bottom row, some areas that we've diversified our thinking. One area has been on the one laptop per child. So I don't know if you're familiar with this initiative. This is a $100 laptop to help enable education in rural parts of Africa and base of the pyramid education. The complete opposite of that on the spectrum is the American Express Centurion card. This card actually does exist. I don't know if you've heard, there are rumors about this card, but you need to have a net worth well in excess of $10 million to be considered a member of American Express Centurion. That's actually a solid titanium card that you get when you become a member, and it links to a concierge service and about a $7,000 annual fee. So we have helped kind of create that premium experience as well as address some of the needs at the base of the pyramid. And we've also just recently finished creating the single primary touch point of the Target experience, their new shopping cart and shopping basket product. All of these were designed to create an iconic, unique Target experience by taking that one element that every shopper is literally touching throughout their experience in the store and making it Target's own. So that's just an example of some of the things that we've done. What I want to talk about today, somehow this acoustic gets really strange here. And I move over here. What I want to talk about today are emerging markets. And I had a brief conversation with the class earlier about this. And I want to, before we get into it, just kind of add some detail to when we talk about emerging markets, what this conversation, what this presentation is going to be about. What it's about is it's about the exploding middle class in emerging markets. So if you look at your population pyramid, there are 6.5 billion people in the planet. And traditionally, when companies, especially European companies, think of emerging markets, they really focus here on this top pyramid. So no matter where you go, Moscow, Shanghai, Sao Paulo, there is a very tiny sliver of the population that are buying BMWs, they're buying Ferraris, they're shopping at Tiffany. They're really a very high affluent class. But they really only represent a very teeny part of the population. So in terms of driving innovation, they're really not major players. Oftentimes when we talk about emerging markets, we talk about the opposite end of the pyramid. We talk about the base of the pyramid. This is where you've got tremendous poverty, you've got tremendous social issues, you have basic functions of society just aren't in place. And you hear a lot of terms around things like social innovation, where you're talking about creating ways to create potable water. You're talking about ways to test for HIV in a rural part of Africa where people don't have access to health care or even proximity to a hospital or a health clinic. What we're going to talk about today is this part in the middle. And I don't know if anyone has heard this term. It's only recently being socialized, but this term is called playing the piano. And basically, it's an approach that multinational companies are taking to address the needs of the emerging market, both near the top of the pyramid or in the middle of the pyramid, as well as the base of the pyramid. So they're sort of driven by two very distinct motivations. One is very much driven by a company's need to grow and grow now in the short term. And the other is more of a long-term bet, and it has often more of a social and a moral, really, driver. We at Continuum have a social innovation team as well as an emerging markets team, and we work together to help sort of play that piano from both ends and bring them together. So why did we get interested in emerging markets? A lot is known about emerging markets right now. But unfortunately, a lot of this information is very quantitative. So we understand things like household income. We understand things like purchase power parity. We measure emerging markets purely in economic terms. And what we feel is not known enough about emerging markets are the people in emerging markets. Who are they? What do they value? What is important to them? When they get up in the morning, what are the problems they're trying to solve? What are the jobs they need to get done? And as a designer, and certainly working with a design firm, we feel that the way to uncover opportunity isn't to look at a stack of spreadsheets, but the way to uncover opportunity is to really get into the hearts and minds of people and find out what they need, and that's how we drive innovation. So a couple of things about why emerging markets are important, or at least why we feel they're important. The first thing, and I'll give you a very brief history lesson before we go into it. The first thing is size. This is actually, what we're seeing right now in the world is the second boom of the middle class. The first boom happened at the end of the 19th century in Western Europe and North America. And what happened was that as Western society's economy shifted from a farming economy to a manufacturing economy, people began to get jobs in factories, and those people then began earning wages. They became consumers, and they started buying things from other factories, and you had this virtuous cycle that has largely lasted to today, relatively intact, of our economy. But what's happening now in the middle, in emerging markets is the middle class is shifting. It's shifting away. Countries, Greece is a great example of a country that's very old, that doesn't have a lot of young people, and as a result, it's not really growing. Growth is now happening in the emerging markets because the population pyramid is more balanced than it is in developed economies. And I know we talked a little bit about not getting into numbers, but there is one number that's just staggering for me personally, and that is this one. And this is a World Bank figure. By 2030, so in 20 years, 93% of the middle class will live in an emerging market. 93%, 9 out of 10 people who are considered middle class will not live in the United States, they will not live in Western Europe, they will not live in Japan, they will not live in Korea, South Korea. They will live in countries where we know very little about. We know very little about, again, who they are, what they value, what's important to them, how they use technology. The middle class drives, in many ways, innovation. And if we don't understand this population, we're going to be in a very, very difficult position to remain competitive. And just to also put this in context, 93% is essentially 70 million people a year joining the middle class in emerging markets, which is roughly adding the size of France to the middle class population per year. And France is, of course, already a very large and lucrative market. So in addition to size, the other reason why emerging markets are important is if you believe in the Geoffrey Moore's innovation adoption curve, innovation tends to happen from the edge. So at the edge of every population, here's where we have the early adopters. These people are doing things that the rest of us don't fully understand. This was Napster in 1996. The music industry wasn't paying any attention to what a bunch of college kids in Northwestern were doing. But what they were doing is they were representing and using technology and demonstrating a behavior that was going to one day change the entire music and ultimately entertainment business. These early adopters, we feel, are going to start coming more and more from emerging markets because there's going to be behaviors that are going on that we're not going to fully understand at first, and if we don't pay careful attention to them, we could miss a huge shift in the innovation landscape. And what's interesting is that this is actually already happening. This is not really new news. And in fact, if anyone's ever heard of M-Pesa, raise your hand if you've heard of M-Pesa. It's a mobile telephone provider in Kenya. M-Pesa has done something pretty amazing. What they have done is they have created a business model in mobile phones based on a couple of facts that have never existed in developed markets. The first is mobile phone penetration. In Kenya, 48% of people basically have access to a mobile phone. Most of them have it through access to a shared mobile phone, like through a family's mobile phone. But for the most part, half the country has access to mobile phones. Interestingly, only 20% of that same population has a bank account. Now, in our economy, in our world, most of us, although it's changing rapidly, had a bank account long before we had a mobile phone. So banking established itself, centuries-old institution, established itself as a model well before telecommunication came along. But what happened in Kenya is that the mobile phone began to turn into a money transfer device. M-Pesa observed this behavior, and what they did was they seized upon it and they created a business model. And I'll just run through their commercial, and you can see what's going on here.
Now you can send Pesa fast and safe using Safaricom's new service, M-Pesa. It is the new reliable way to send and receive money using your mobile phone. Visit your nearest M-Pesa agent today. Terms and conditions apply.
So it started because if in the character in the commercial, if a young man moves to Nairobi and he leaves his village to get a job, he's often going to be sending money back to his family, back to his village. There's no safe way to do that. So what they started doing was they started buying prepaid minutes cards and then selling those prepaid minutes cards to someone who lived in the village who had a mobile phone. That person would take a commission on that sale, give the cash locally, literally hand the cash, walk down to the part of the village where the family lived, provide that cash and make a profit. So what M-Pesa has now done is they've expanded even beyond cash transfer. They're creating, again, no bank accounts. So the economy is strictly a cash economy. So now what happens is, in order to manage the unevenness of cash flow, M-Pesa is getting into payroll services. So now, rather than if you hire someone to work you know, on a project locally in one of these villages, if you don't have the cash to pay them on demand, you could wire that cash to their mobile phone because they don't have a bank account, and you could start to begin the wheels of an economy in a very remote and rural area. This is actually happening right now. This is a term that's also been, I don't know how well socialized it is. It's called innovation blowback. It's the idea that an innovation can be developed in an emerging market and then be applied to a developed market. So what's happening here is that Nokia has started a new business called Nokia Money. So I think we were talking also this morning in the class about if I were to ask you, would you invest in Nokia right now, you probably would say no. And the reason why you would probably say no is because they've lost the smartphone battle to Apple and to BlackBerry, not to mention Android. So you look at Nokia and say, well, they've missed the boat on the next wave of technology. They must not be a strong bet in the future. But on the contrary, they're dominant in emerging markets because they're expert at making low-cost, durable phones that can withstand all kinds of different temperatures and different conditions. They're building on this model to create a bank system. And they're going to evolve, most likely, depending on how well this succeeds, it's still a little early, but their model is to evolve into a financial services provider. So Nokia is finding a way to compete and have a long-term sustainable future because they're letting emerging markets drive their innovation strategy. So I want to talk a little bit about principles for emerging markets. There's really three things when we work in emerging markets that sort of drive our approach. And I'm not going to get into our process per se, but I just wanted to walk through some of these things to be thinking about if you're in a situation where you're trying to innovate or grow a business in emerging markets. The first thing you need to think about is you need to rethink your conventions before any project you start. Chances are your first read on the situation will be wrong. And the reason why your first read will be wrong is because you are so honed and so immersed in the way that business and design and innovation operate in developed economies. The second thing is to distill differences. The minute you segment a market, whether it's segmenting between men and boys, women and girls, depending on how you define a segmentation, the first question you ask is, well, why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this because these two segments have a meaningful difference. Oftentimes, our clients assume that one difference is important and another difference is less important. And what we try to do is distill each of these differences to find out where the meaningful differences are, because in those areas, that will drive the innovative solution. And the third thing, probably one of the most important things, is to create meaning. Again, conventional wisdom says right now that if you want to be successful in an emerging market, you take a product that does well in a developed economy, cost reduce it as best you can, and then sell it for the cheapest possible price. Now, it's not that cost is not important or that this consumer is not extremely cost and value conscious. But if you start with cost, you're going to miss the opportunity to deliver something meaningful. Start with meaning and then reduce cost. So let's just go through a couple of examples. So this is about rethinking conventions. So these are examples right now that would probably be poster children for business successes, especially business successes driven by design innovation. So we have the Mini, which is a premium subcompact. So it's taken the idea of a small car and making it an extremely high margin product. That's a $35,000 subcompact car. Bugaboo, another example of taking a product that was once considered the premium product in strollers was maybe $200 or $300. This is an $850 stroller because it's delivering on the desire for moms to become as active as possible, as active as they possibly can right after they have a baby. And of course, we all know about Starbucks and Altoids. Similarly, if you take a design icon like CocaCola, the first thing that you might look at, and certainly when I look at it, I think of this is the perfect blend of form, of brand expression. The shape of it makes me want to grab it. It looks refreshing. The form of the shape is not only ergonomic, but it sort of is emblematic of the way that the product, that refreshing product, might pour out of it. I bring a lot to this, and Coca-Cola has wanted me to really get that takeaway when they see this product. But interestingly, in Brazil, Coca-Cola products are often more recycled, or there's a better recycling infrastructure than there exists in a developed market. We tend to throw these things away, or at least we try to recycle them. So what can happen here, and this is a bootleg cleaning store in Sao Paulo. So what this guy has done is he makes his own cleaning agents, but he makes them as knockoffs of branded cleaning agents. So he'll make Ajax, he'll make Mr. Muscle, which is an S.C. Johnson brand, and then he'll concoct them, and then he'll put them into recycled products, into recycled Coke bottles. So consumers walk in, they get to basically smell the product. If they want to customize it, they can customize it on demand. If they don't want that much, he says, no problem. You just pour a little bit into a large bin. Then they walk home with it. They use it. They come back and they refill it. It's a sustainable model. It's a model that it's very high in customer service because of the customization and the ability to create your own product. And it's all based on this iconic shape of a Coke bottle. So again, it's a small example, but it's an important example to show that no matter what you see, you're looking at it through a developed market or a Western eye. When it comes to distilling the differences, there are 5 key areas of differences. The first are physical, then psychological, cultural, environmental, and financial. So again, if you're developing a product or a service for emerging markets, you might say, well, somewhere amongst these differences is the key difference that we're either going to win or we're going to lose with. So how do you find out what those are? Recently, we finished a project with Pampers, P&G in China. About 10 years ago, Pampers was not doing very well in China at all. And in fact, the reason was because the exact same Pamper that was available in North America was cost reduced and then sold to the Chinese consumer. And what happened was this simple cost reduction model didn't work for them. They didn't understand why it wasn't working, why Pampers was not taking off. So what we did was we looked at the situation and we started to analyze it based on the areas of difference. So the first thing we did is we looked at physical and psychological. So there were people that said, well, Chinese babies, they must be different physically. Or Chinese parents must have a different psychological connection to their children. And by the way, when you're working on a project like this, it's amazing how much prejudice can be revealed, unintentionally, but prejudicial nonetheless. But it turned out that babies in China, this was the big news flash, babies in China actually pee and poop just the way babies do in North America. And another major news flash is moms and dads love their children in China just the way they love them everywhere else. So this wasn't the area of difference that we were going to make, really make significant headway. But then when we looked at the cultural, environmental, and financial challenges and differences in China, and things began to reveal themselves. So the first area was culture. So as you probably all know, that there's been a one-child policy in China now for about 27 years. Sorry, that was my email. There's been a one-child policy in China for the last 27 years. And what you've actually created is this amazing family support structure. One child has 6 caregivers. They have mom and dad, and they have 2 sets of grandparents. So a mom has tremendous support when raising her child, which means she can support a tradition that exists in China that does not exist anywhere else in developed economies, which is, and I don't know if you can see this, but this baby is not wearing any diaper, cloth or otherwise. So what happens is this mom has conditioned her child. She knows what time the child eats, and she'll know what time that child is ready to pee or to poop. And she's ready for it. And in fact, when she decides it's time, she starts to whistle. The baby is conditioned in a Pavlovian way to pee and to poop on demand. So what she does, and that plastic bag is there to collect that child's poop. And so therefore, why would she ever put a plastic diaper that, by the way, is big and bulky in her estimation, will not let her child's skin breathe, because right now, this child's getting a lot of breathability down there. Why would she do that? Well, things are changing in China as they are changing everywhere. One of the things that's changing, and let me just touch real briefly on this slide before we get into what's changing. This is an example of a living situation in Shanghai. Very much like New York or any major urban area, extremely tight living situations. We actually heard from moms that the P&G, the Pampers diaper, was so big and bulky that she said, where am I going to put this in my home? Again, we're a Costco culture. We'll buy 16 tons of peanut butter once every 6 months and store it in our basements. It does not happen in a congested urban area. The other issue, of course, is cost. And the reason why I'm putting this up here is because, again, we're not starting with cost. We're trying to figure out what's meaningful, and we know we have to end with cost. We did, however, set a 10-cent goal that this diaper should cost no more than 10 cents, because we felt that because we're trying to drive adoption, that we needed to get it down to the lowest possible price in order to get people to try, and then hopefully get that second moment of truth where they start to adopt it into their lifestyle. So getting back to the caregiver, the 6-to-1 caregiver ratio. So moms are now starting to work. They're working in China, and not only are they working, but they're not working at home. They're leaving villages and going to major areas like Guangzhou and Shanghai, and they're getting jobs in factories. So now they're detached from that caregiver circle. So mom doesn't have her mom there to help take care of the baby, but mom also needs a good night's sleep. Because if she doesn't get a good night's sleep, she's not going to perform. And if she's not going to perform, she's not going to be able to raise her child. And what we found is there was this real strong psychological and cultural connection to education. And the idea was if you and your baby can get a good night's sleep, then you and your baby will have a better life. So our goal here was to rethink not only the design of the product, because the product looked bulky, it looked cumbersome, it looked like this baby's skin wouldn't breathe. Also make sure that it was small enough that it could fit in a tight apartment. And thirdly, begin to really think about the messaging of this product. This is not a little baby running around and the message is this child can be active and you don't have to worry about a blowout. The messaging on this is this baby can sleep and so can you. And that was the key thing to winning over the Chinese consumer. So if we look at the comparison between the diaper on the left, which was previously being sold in China, and the diaper on the right, you can see instantly that the diaper on the right, all it has is enough absorption to make it through the night. That's it. It doesn't have to last throughout the day. It doesn't have to handle large issues. It just needs to help them get that good night's sleep. It also needs to be small enough so it could fit in the tightest apartments. And as you can see, with all this material reduction, we're able to achieve a 10-cent price point. And that 10-cent price point turned out to be really, really important because it was indeed that inflection point to allow this market to grow. And just one quick side note on here, because the goal was to make this as thin as possible and to look like fabric and not look like something that would suffocate the skin, P&G engineers had to find an ultra-thin absorbency material. By finding that material and getting it engineered to cost, they not only were able to serve this market, but now that material is coming back to North America. And in fact, Pampers' recent new introduction has a more low-profile diaper that actually, so an older child who doesn't want people to see they're wearing a diaper while they're training and just making that transition to being a big child, we're now using that technology. So an insight, again, in emerging market drove an innovation in a developed market. The last Eric principle, and again, I just personally feel this is the most important, is creating meaning. Is everyone familiar with the Tata Nano? Raise your hand. I don't know if you. This is a $2,000 car. When this car was first introduced, I don't know if you paid any attention to the way Western media reported on it, but it was almost like the light segment at the end, where the two broadcasters would say, "You know, Cheryl, India's got a $2,000 car. Really? And can you believe there's no air conditioning in this car? No air conditioning, not for me." And they chuckled. They thought it was kind of funny. They even, one report actually talked about the first paragraph of the report was, you actually have to roll the window down with your hand. That is how embarrassingly cheap this car is. Others talked about how it only had a 50 horsepower motor. And what was revealing about the coverage of the car was that what we were doing is we were looking at what a Western consumer values: comfort, air conditioning, convenience, power windows, horsepower, big engine. And because we weren't seeing what we value, we just naturally assumed that this car was a piece of garbage. So if you look at what Tata did, remember, they're an Indian company who's creating a car for the Indian consumer, so they have the benefit of relying on their instincts. We don't. So that's why they were able to produce something that was really interesting. So first of all, let's talk about that 50 horsepower motor. Friday afternoon, you want to leave work, you look out the window, and you say, wow, there's no traffic. This is a low traffic day in Mumbai. This is traffic reality. So 50 miles an hour doesn't seem like, 50 horsepower doesn't seem like a bad idea, given that this is the pace at which traffic is progressing along. The next big thing is this. If you've ever been to India, you will see entire families, oftentimes with babies and children, riding a motorcycle without a helmet. these aren't bad people, bad parents. This is the way it works. This is how you get from point A to point B, because this is an affordable form of motorized transport. They can't afford a car, so they're going to do what they have to do, run their errands, go visit family and friends. They're going to do it while riding a motorcycle. So suddenly things start to come into focus here, especially when you look at this. If you're a car designer and you're in Milan or you're in London or you're in Detroit, you're never going to experience monsoon season in India. So you're never even going to be thinking about this as a possible problem to be solved, because it's just not the world that you live in. So you have traffic, we've got safety, and we've got environmental challenges. So what Tata has done is they haven't created a new car. What they've created is a safe and reliable family transportation for low-income people in India. Once you've defined it as what the real problem that is trying to be solved, it's no longer a joke. In fact, it's practically a brilliant, genius innovation in itself. Now, the reason why I think that meaning was important here, because they recognized what was meaningful to the Indian consumer. The reason why this is important is to look at this. This is Daimler Chrysler, or I guess they're no longer Daimler Chrysler, but this is the smart car. So this car is not an inexpensive car. It's about $20,000, depending on your options package. It's very tiny. And there are people within Smart that think, well, we can compete with the Nano. And it's very simple, actually. The way that we're going to do it is we're going to take this car and we're going to take out all the leather interior, we're going to take out all the fancy plastic, we're going to take out all of the added features and parts, and we're going to make it as cheaply as we possibly can, and that's how we'll compete with the Nano. And the reason why that won't work, the reason why you couldn't possibly cost reduce this down to nothing is this. This guy is one of thousands of people that repair things in Indian villages. You know, we forget, when things break, we throw them out. But there was a time, and in India it still exists, when something breaks, you have it fixed. This guy has moderate level of skill, but he's got his own little shop. He's got a great relationship with the locals. People are very loyal to him. They know him by name. He knows his customers by name. The reason why the Nano is so inexpensive to make is because the cost of a final assembly is not happening in the factory. The cost of final assembly is happening when this guy gets the pieces and parts. So key things, non-structural things that don't require welding, that don't require unibody construction, he is putting together using adhesives. So they work with, I think it was 3M. They work with 3M to develop adhesives for windshields, adhesives for door panels, adhesives for taillights. So he's able to, with very little tool and very little skill, do final assembly on the product. And by the way, he now becomes the dealer. So we leverage his personal relationships that he has with the locals in his village, in his area, to now begin to sell these cars. He can also fix the cars. He can also customize the cars, which is something that we can't even do today. If they want to have a different door panel, if they want to have a different color, if they want to have a different way of arranging the car, maybe it's no back seat, he can customize this car exactly to the specifications of the consumer. And this is why, because Tata recognizes that by creating and basically turning him into an entrepreneur who can develop a business and develop a dealership network, this is why thinking about what's meaningful to the consumer and understanding the environment is a lot more important than just reducing cost. So, rethink conventions, distill differences, and create meaning. And thank you. Any questions?